This is CBS News, New York.
We are on red alert across the tri-state area this afternoon. There is still a chance for isolated to scattered thunderstorms that could be strong, possibly even severe, and there is the threat of flash flooding. Any of the cells that do develop could drop really just copious amounts of rain. We've seen big rain numbers. We saw that on Sunday. We saw it again yesterday into this morning, and unfortunately, we could see some more big numbers later today. Here is the setup for us, so you can see this area of low pressure, and you can see the associated front. So it just becomes a focal point for thunderstorm activity as we head through the day. This is how Futurecast is seeing this all sort of unfolding. This is 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You can see a cell here. A lot of this looks to once again be concentrated in parts of the lower Hudson Valley, so Orange and Putnam counties, Rockland, parts of Westchester. So that's what we're looking at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But as we head into about 9 o'clock at night, Futurecast is showing us strong cells moving through Sullivan and Ulster counties. So we continue to watch across the tri-state area. Now, tomorrow there is a bit of a break. We get a bit of a lull, at least in the more serious activity. There's a slight chance that we could see some pop-up showers at about 3 o'clock on your Saturday afternoon. But for the most part, Saturday is looking like the better of the 2 weekend days, because when we head into Sunday, we start to see the morning, maybe not so bad, but by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it does look like we'll start to see some showers and thunderstorms popping up, some of which could be strong. Then it looks like another round comes through, and this is Sunday evening, and you can see again some of these very significant cells all across the lower Hudson Valley, but also across parts of New Jersey as well, and we'll watch that then push through your Sunday night. This particular model showing some of the bigger rain amounts that are possible on Sunday, and this one is putting down 1.3 inches in New York City, but 2 inches for Riverhead, 3.2 inches for New Brunswick, and 3.7 inches for Belmar. So there is the potential for more flooding rain. Your first alert 7-day forecast shows today the forecast high 85 degrees, but because of the humidity, it will feel hotter, and we remain on red alert, so keep that rain gear handy. Tomorrow, 87 degrees will still feel like 90 degrees because of the humidity. Same on Sunday, and Sunday is a yellow alert day.
This is breaking news.
They say DNA from those 3 women involved in this case were found, and it connected it to him as well. Those 3 women are Amber Costello, Melissa Barthelme, Megan Waterman. Again, police say all 3 women were found skeletonized. They were bound. They were sex workers. They advertised on Backpage and Craigslist, and again, they said the burner phones DNA is what led them to Rex Heuermann. And something also very interesting that we learned today. Prosecutors say that he had several computer searches, over 200 searches for Gilgo Beach murders. He also searched for the victims, for victims' families, even victims' children. Now, at the end of the day, the judge remanded him without bail. His defense attorney spoke just a short time ago, saying they look forward to fighting this case in court. He is due back in court August 1st. But again, this is a developing story. We're waiting to learn more information. The DA's office is expected to hold a press conference between 4 and 5 today. And of course, we will learn much, much more then. But some very disturbing details coming out of that courtroom today. Christine.
Jennifer, curious though, he did plead not guilty. What was Heuermann's demeanor like during this arraignment?
He appeared very calm. He was in cuffs. He had on a gray polo shirt and khaki pants. And he just seemed very calm throughout the whole thing, listened to the judge, listened to the prosecutors when they were talking, and didn't say a word. Now, we did, just a short time ago before the arraignment, victims' families actually talked before the arraignment, saying that they are happy and a little bit relieved. Take a listen.
I just want to say that I'm grateful for the hard work that's been done. I'm grateful that today is happening, and I'm hopeful for the future. I hope that she's remembered as a beautiful young woman, not what her occupation was at that time, and she's loved and missed every day. It's been surreal. I'm still shell-shocked, and like I said, I'm just grateful that today is happening.
We're happy that the police are finally taking a positive step in this respect, but this is just the beginning. I have no doubt but that we will find that this man, if he is the killer, will have killed other people that are not yet even known, whose bodies have not yet been located.
And that, who you just heard from, was an attorney representing the victims' families in this case. He told us right after he believes that Rex Heuermann is involved in more cases and more developments he's expected from police. But that is the latest live here from the Suffolk County Criminal Courthouse. Jennifer Bisram, CBS 2 News, send it back to you.
All right, Jennifer, thank you for that update. Again, Rex Heuermann arraigned this afternoon on 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder. These murders happening over a decade ago in the remote area of Gilgo Beach on Long Island's South Shore. It has gripped the community there for over a decade, and this has been a huge development today with this breaking news coming after an arrest last night at Heuermann's office in Manhattan. Of course, we will be following every detail for you this afternoon. In the meantime, this has been a breaking news special report. Look for much more details coming up tonight at 5 o'clock and streaming on CBS News New York. Of course, for any updates, anytime, go to cbsnewyork.com. Now back to regular programming.
This has been breaking news.
An emotional remembrance today for a hero Newark firefighter. Friends, family, and fellow firefighters packed a church for the funeral of Wayne Brooks Jr., who died fighting a fire at Port Newark. CBS 2's Christine Sloan joins us from outside the church. Christine.
Mary, another painful day as family and friends gathered to say goodbye to Wayne Brooks Jr. at the memorial service, which is wrapping up right now. His 2 daughters talking about their father, calling him a superhero. A fitting tribute to Newark firefighter Wayne Brooks Jr., who made the ultimate sacrifice. Fellow firefighters line.
This is breaking news.
Good afternoon, everyone. We interrupt Judge Judy. I'm Christine Johnson because we have news of the District Attorney of Suffolk County and also investigators giving us a live update on the arrest in the Gilgo Beach murders. Police took Rex Heuermann of Massapequa Park into custody last night. He is now charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder. The District Attorney of Suffolk County is now giving an update on this case. Let's listen in.
Attorney's Office for the murders of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. The investigation of Maureen Brainerd Barnes is ongoing. These young women went missing between July of 2007 and September of 2010. They were found in December of 2010 by the Suffolk County Police Department, and then there was nothing, absolutely nothing. For the next 13 years, their cases went unsolved until today. When I took office in January of 2022, I made Gilgo a priority. I made Gilgo a priority before I took office. I met with the victims' families, some of whom I'm proud to have standing with us today, and I told them that we were going to handle this case differently. We were going to do it differently. And that when I showed up, you weren't going to see me calling the media and being on Gilgo Beach with a giant magnifying lens looking for clues 12 years after the case. What I was going to do was I was going to work with my task force. We were going to form a task force. We were going to work with the Suffolk County Police Department. We were going to work with the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. We were going to work with the New York State Police. We were going to work with our FBI. And we were going to form this task force, and we were going to work together, and we were going to use the grand jury, the power of the grand jury, to reach a determination in this case. Because the grand jury has 2 things: it has power, it has reach. You could obtain documents, you could interview witnesses, but the other thing that the grand jury has secrecy. No one knows what you do when you operate a grand jury proceeding. And we knew that when we were investigating this case and when we dealt with the media or whatever it was we were doing, we were playing before a party of one, because we knew the person responsible for these murders would be looking at us. So we were very careful how we handled the investigation. We maintained the integrity of the investigation. Most importantly of all, we maintained the secrecy of that investigation, and I think that's paid dividends as we've seen today. Now, I think that when we had the task force, the first thing we did, got together with Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison. We formed the task force. Our first meeting was February 1st of 2022. And what we did, all of the agencies here, we made the commitment. We were going to take our most talented investigators. So in the district attorney's office, we took ADAs, myself included. We took analysts, we took detective investigators, and they worked on a daily basis with other talented investigators from all of the agencies here. We started that in February 1st in 2022. 6 weeks later, on March 14th, 2022, the name Rex Heuermann was first mentioned as a suspect in the Gilgo case. A New York State investigator was able to identify him in a database, and from that point on, we used the power of the grand jury, over 300 subpoenas and search warrants looking into this individual's background to bring us to this day. So I'm proud. I know that this case is over, but I'm proud of what we've accomplished up to this point. I know we have more to accomplish, but I'm also thankful for the partnership of the task force, because certainly without the participation of the task force, we wouldn't be standing here. Before I thank some folks and turn it over to our partners, I just want to talk a little bit about the evidence in the case. I know a lot of people know about the case. As I indicated, the victims went missing between July of 2010 and July of 2007 and September of 2010. In December of 2010, their bodies were recovered. They were buried in a similar fashion, in a similar location, in a similar way. All the women were petite. They all did the same thing for a living. They all advertised the same way, and there were immediately similarities with regard to the crime scenes. All the women were bound at the head, at the midsection, or at the chest, and later at the legs. The other thing I think that that's been talked about in the media was they were bound by burlap. That has taken a life of its own in the media, and the burlap has been described or thought to be the burlap that's used at a nursery for. That's not the burlap that was used in this case. The burlap was camouflage burlap used for duck blinds of hunting. Obviously it was used to purposely hide the bodies. One thing that became immediately apparent was at the time of each of the murders, the murderer, the defendant Heuermann, he got a cell phone and a burner phone, which is prepaid and anonymous. And for each of the murders, he got an individual burner phone, and he used that to communicate with the victims. Then shortly after the death of the victims, he then would get rid of the burner phone. Right away in December of 2012, FBI CAST analysts, special agents with the CAST unit of the FBI, they immediately began looking at that cell site data. They compared the victims' phones with the burner phones, and they immediately honed in on some similarities, specifically in the Massapequa Park area. And they looked at an area of a confluence of 4 cell towers, and they realized that this had significance because the perpetrator of these crimes was probably located within this area at or around the times of the murder. And that was mapped out. That was called the box, and it was an area in Massapequa Park. The FBI also managed to do that for an area in Midtown Manhattan. And so that was an investigative lead. The other investigative lead at the time was, even though there was a significant amount of time that elapsed with regard to before the victims were recovered, there was some significant evidence recovered. Specifically, there was a hair recovered from Maureen Brainerd Barnes from a belt buckle that was around her legs. With regard to Megan Waterman, there were 3 hairs recovered from her, one from around her head area, one from around her leg area in the burlap, and then there was one caught in between the tape. And that was recovered. Amber Costello also had a significant hair that was recovered during the time of the recovery. But again, the crime scene, because it was out there for so long and because it was exposed to the elements, those hairs were degraded, so you couldn't use traditional DNA analysis on it. You would have to wait and use mitochondrial DNA. And back in 2010, the technology wasn't there for mitochondrial DNA. So the investigation proceeded, but also technology proceeded as well. And then in February of 2022, we formed the task force. We began working collectively. And then a mere 6 weeks later, on March 14th, 2022, Rex Heuermann was identified for the first time. And the manner in which that was done was the New York State investigator looked at a database. Amber Costello, the day before her disappearance on September 1st, 2010, she met with an individual for the purposes of having him pay her money for her services. But she involved herself in a ruse where once the individual gave her money, and other individuals came into the house, pretended to be significant others, confronted the individual with the purpose of making that individual uncomfortable, having him leave without retrieving his money, and that's exactly what happened. That individual was identified as a person who was between 6'4", 6'6", a large man, thickly built, not necessarily overly muscular, but just a naturally big person with glasses, white, and dark hair. Also of significance was that the fact that he was driving a dark-colored black first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche with a very unique feature that was between it's a pickup truck, so it was between the cab and the bed, and that was identified. Again, that was back in 2010. But it wasn't until March of 2022 that database was searched by the task force, and this individual was identified. That individual was Rex Heuermann, the defendant. And right away, there were some commonalities that came right to the fore. Rex Heuermann, 6'4", largely a large person, not necessarily muscular, but a very physically large person. He has glasses. He has the dark hair. And also, of particular note, he owned, at the time, that first-generation Chevy Avalanche. But there was more. He lived at 105 First Avenue, which was located within that box area that the FBI first discovered in 2012. But there was more. Also, he worked at the time at an architect, he owned his own architectural firm at an address at 19 West 36th Street in Midtown Manhattan, and that was also the area of interest that was identified by the FBI in 2012. Again, that was March 14th, 2022. And from that point on, our partners and my office, we used the grand jury to continue to investigate, and we executed over 300 subpoenas, search warrants pertaining to this individual to find out more information. One of the things that we did is we followed him because we wanted to get an abandonment sample of his DNA, which we were able to do. We also got DNA samples, abandonment samples from his family. And then we went back and we got mitochondrial DNA testing. And with regard to, there's an aspect of New York State law that doesn't allow me to talk about DNA testing, specifically at press conferences. It's, so I can't do that. However, at the arraignment, and also when we filed our bail letter, we talked about the significance of that evidence. So if anyone needs to see that, but suffice to say, that evidence was significant, especially with regard to the other evidence that we had developed. But it was there was another interesting aspect. We looked at the Uhrman family travel records, and we learned that during the murders of the last three women, Bartholomew, Waterman, and Costello, that during the commission of those murders, the defendant's wife and children were out of New York State, and he was alone in the tri-state area. We also went back and looked at his cell site records, and we compared his personal cell site records with that of the 4 target phones, and we saw that there was areas of commonality. In other words, that whenever the target phones would bounce off a cell tower, if the Uhrman personal phone bounced off a tower, it was always consistent and in close proximity with the target phones. And at no time was there ever an instant where those target phones were, for instance, in New Jersey while the defendant was on Long Island. So that was completely consistent. The other thing that we looked at was we looked at his use of burner phones, and we followed, using the grand jury, using the great investigative help from our partners, we followed his use of burner phones. We were able to identify 7 separate burner phones that he used. We were able to use fictitious or fraudulent email addresses and get Google warrants, and from there we got his searches. And we learned what the defendant was searching. In a 14-month period, he had over 200 searches pertaining to the Gilgo investigation. Not only was he looking at investigative insight, he was trying to figure out how is the task force using cell phones to try to figure out what's happening. What are the developments with regard to the task force? And this really supported our decision to keep our investigative focus secret, because we knew that this one person would be watching, and we didn't want to give him any insight into what we were doing. And we also didn't want him to know just how close we were getting. So we maintained the grand jury secrecy, and we maintained the integrity of our investigation. In addition to those Gilgo searches, he was compulsively searching pictures of the victims, but not only pictures of the victims, pictures of their relatives, their sisters, their children, and he was trying to locate those individuals. In addition to that, there was a lot of torture, porn, and what you would consider, depictions of women being abused, being raped, and being killed. In addition to all of that, we continue to look and we were able to determine that Chevy Avalanche that was used during the commission of the Amber Costello crime, that Chevy Avalanche was in South Carolina. And again, with the help of our partners, we were able to seize that Chevy Avalanche pursuant to a search warrant, and we're certainly going to analyze that. In addition to that, pursuant to the arrest of the defendant last night by the Suffolk County Police Department, we obtained one of his burner phones, his last burner phones. As I said, this case is not over, it's only beginning. We're continuing to execute search warrants, and we anticipate getting more evidence. Before I turn it over to my partners, I want to thank a lot of people in the room. First and foremost, I want to thank the victims in this case. You know, it's always inspiring as a prosecutor when you get to meet the victims. And while sometimes our defendants could embody the very worst of humanity, it seems that invariably our victims embody the very best of what it means to be human. And in this case, it was no different. I've gotten to know the families, and I'm inspired by them, and I'm impressed by their patience and by their dogged persistence in not only supporting their lost sisters or mother or daughter, but also really, really standing for victims everywhere. So I want to thank them all so much, and I want to let them know that we're going to continue to work this case. The next thing I want to do, I just want to thank our partners. I want to thank Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison. We said it was a change, and when we talked about, not going before the media, if you see, Rodney did go before the media, but it was always in a very controlled manner, and it was always with a controlled purpose. Again, we did that because we knew we were playing before an audience of one person. And so I want to thank Rodney for his partnership. Most importantly, I want to thank Rodney for his integrity. I think in the past, the reason why these various investigations fell short was because there was a lot of outside influence, a lot of people who had nothing to do with the investigation, nothing to do with the investigation or any of the agencies that were actually handling the investigation. They still asserted pressure on those investigations. That did not happen with our task force. Our task force was run by our members, and we did what we thought was in the best investigative steps and what was in the best interest of the investigation. So I want to thank Rodney for that, and his whole team. I know that we have Suffolk County Homicide here, Kevin Byer, we've got Inspector Rowan, and I know that they've been around, and I know that they're here, and I know that they stand in the shoes of their past investigators, and I want to congratulate them, and I want to thank them for their partnership. I also want to thank Sheriff Errol Toulon. Everything I said about Rodney, I could say about Errol. Errol is an unbelievable partner. He was an unbelievable partner in this case. During the pendency of this case, and one of the reasons why we had to take this case down was we learned that the defendant was using these alternate identities and these alternate instruments to continue to patronize sex workers, which of course made us very nervous. But with the help of the sheriff and his database and his analysts, we were able to continually stay one step ahead of the defendant. So thank you, Sheriff Toulon. I want to thank the FBI. I know Assistant Director in Charge Michael Brodak is here. I want to thank his entire team. When you have the FBI, not only do you have tremendous resources and insight, whether it's the Behavioral Sciences Unit, whether it's CAST, whether it's CART, which is their computer unit, but you also have the ability to seize a car in South Carolina. I can't seize a car in South Carolina without the FBI. So thank you for that, and thank you for your partnership, and thank you for your willingness to work with us. I want to thank the New York State troopers. I know Major Udis is here and his team. This case is emblematic of great cooperation, but we always get that same level of cooperation from the state police, no matter what case we're working. So I want to thank them. Their investigators did great work on this job and in this case, and we couldn't have done it without them. Lastly, I want to thank Nassau County Police Commissioner Pat Ryder. I don't know if he's here. Did he make it? This case, as I said, spans 13 years, and during that time, Pat Ryder has been our neighbor to the west. When it started, I think he was a sergeant, detective sergeant, maybe uniform sergeant, but whatever. Whenever we needed something to be done, or whenever the task force needed something to be done, Pat Ryder would do it, and he would do it quietly, without much fanfare, and we know he would keep the confidentiality of our grand jury and our investigation. So I want to thank him for that. And with that, I will turn it over to Commissioner Rodney Harrison.
Good afternoon. Today is a good day. And before I acknowledge the individuals that had a role in getting to this place, I would first and foremost like to offer my deepest condolences to the family members. To the family members of Amber Costello, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman. I can only imagine what you had to endure over the last decade regarding knowing that your killer was still loose. God bless you. Thank you for your patience. So I've had the privilege of being the police commissioner. It's nearly about 2 years now, and I have had that investigative experience in the NYPD as a detective, as the chief of detectives. And when I was going through the process of being the police commissioner, my engagement with the county executive was I was very familiar with this unfortunate homicides. And I wanted to let it be known that this was going to be our #1 priority. But I also want to make this very clear, that this arrest was made by the investigators assigned to the task force. I announced during a press conference 18 months ago about a new team effort that was going to investigate the homicide, and that was going to consist of people from Ray Tierney's office, from Mike Broddock, FBI. Mike, thank you so much. State Police, Steve, appreciate your support. Dr. Earl Toulon, Jr., thank you, sir. As well as the investigators from the homicide detectives in Suffolk County. Gentlemen, thank you for all you've done working together with us, making sure we are here today. I also want to thank my partner, Pat Ryder. Pat, good seeing you, man. And former NYPD Police Commissioner, Keyshawn Sewell, for providing resources to assist in the investigation that brought us here today. So, one of my first acts was to survey the scene. When I first got assigned as a police commissioner, me and Kevin Breyer went over to Gilgo Beach. I want to thank Kevin. You know, when I first met Kevin, he broke the whole case down and where we stood. He knew the case like the back of his hand. He worked tirelessly in this case. Kev was in charge of overseeing the task force since its creation, and you did a phenomenal job, Kev. Thank you. So there's something that I learned from a former NYPD police commissioner, James O'Neill, which is in order to fight crime or to solve investigations, you have to make sure you're working with your law enforcement partners. The blueprint in making this arrest was a whole team effort. Everybody left their egos at the door and made sure that they brought the knowledge and the resources to this investigation. Fresh eyes on this case and the resiliency of our investigators allowed us to identify Rex Heuermann. Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator that ruined families. And if not for the members of this task force, he would still be on the streets today. However, even with this arrest, we're not done. There's more work to do in this investigation regarding the other victims of the Gilgo Beach bodies that were discovered. I'm going to encourage anybody that still has information, call our Crime Stoppers hotline, 1-800-220-TIPS. I want to recognize and thank my Chief of Detectives, John. Thank you for your great work. Deputy Police Commissioner Anthony Carter, both of you who provided update information regarding the case and let it be known if there was any resources that they needed that you brought it to my attention. Since the discovery of the first victim, there's been a lot of scrutiny and criticism regarding how this investigation was handled. I will tell you this, the investigators were never discouraged. They continued and uncovered evidence and followed leads. They never stopped working and will continue to work tirelessly until we bring justice to all the families involved. Last but not least, I want to thank my predecessors that came before me, the work that they did. I want to thank them for really laying the foundation that helped us get to here today. Thanks, Ray.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Brodak. I'm the FBI Special Agent in charge of the New York office's Criminal Division. The FBI expended its full set of resources in support of our local and state partners to advance this investigation. The charges show that we can overcome the most difficult challenges when federal, state, and local law enforcement work together under one task force. While nothing can fill the void caused by the loss of a loved one, through today's announcement, we are hopeful that the families of the victims begin to experience a sense of peace, closure, and justice, and that the general public feels safer knowing that an alleged killer is no longer roaming free. The actions taken today should serve as a reminder that the FBI, along with our law enforcement partners, will continue to be resolute in our determination to bring all offenders to justice, no matter how many years has passed. I would like to thank Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney and his prosecution team, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison and the Suffolk County Police Department, the New York State Police, and the investigators and staff of the FBI New York Field Office, including the Long Island Violent Crime Task Force. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Errol D. Toulon, Jr., and I'm the Sheriff of Suffolk County. I would profoundly like to thank the District Attorney and the Police Commissioner for including me not only here today, but for including the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office and recognizing the importance of jail intelligence. It is extremely important when you realize that we created our human trafficking unit in 2018, that there are victims in our community, and that intelligence is being shared by many of the men and women who are incarcerated today. And we have seen many disjointed investigations occur, and leading up to the leadership of these two men have really brought everything together. I am proud that today we stand here a little bit closer to bringing closure to the families and extend my deepest condolences to all of you. Because of the nature of this case, and recognizing that human trafficking and corrections intelligence is so important, we realize that there are many other cases that are going on that we will help to solve going forward. So I thank my intelligence staff and team that are here today for their diligence and their work. While we did our part in this investigation, we continue because we have to house this individual. We have already designated or talked about certain locations where we will house him, and in addition, the security measures we will implement in our facility to make sure that this individual is brought to justice the way he should be. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Richard N., the field commander with the State Police, and I want to start by expressing my sincere condolences to the family members that are here today. Although losing a loved one, you can never completely get rid of that pain, but hopefully these steps that are taken here today are a step in the right direction for you to start in the healing process or work through the healing process. I want to thank the members of the task force, all the agencies you see behind me. When we were approached in 2022 to be part of this task force, we were fully engaged. Glad to be part of this. We assigned investigators on a full-time basis. You know, what you see being done here today is the end game of agencies working together, as was said before, with no egos, all egos put aside, with the sole mission to find justice for these victims. You know, here in Troop L, Major Stephen Udis oversees the operations down here. He has been intricately involved in this task force since we became partners with it, and I'm going to ask him to come up and say a few words or expand upon this a little bit, our role in the task force.
Thank you, Colonel. Good afternoon. I'm Major Steve Udis, New York State Police, Troop L, Long Island Troop Commander. I'd like to take this opportunity to start off by acknowledging the DA, Ray Tierney, and Commissioner Rodney Harrison for having the vision to see that forming a task force might breathe new light into this investigation. The State Police were asked in early 2022 to join this task force, and one requested we were more than. We were also very pleased that we were able to make some very meaningful contributions in this case, how to propel it forward. I'd like to take this opportunity to all of the task force members from the different agencies and congratulate them on a job well done. I think this case represents an example of what we as law enforcement can do when we pool our resources together and we work together. I would also like to mention the State Police member assigned to this task force. You were provided with a mission, and that mission was to participate in this task force, put everything else that you were doing aside, place 100% of your attention on this case, and help push this case forward. You more than accomplished that mission. I congratulate you on a job well done, and I commend you for your outstanding work. To the families, I'd like to say that on behalf of myself and the New York State Police, we offer you our deepest condolences. We recognize that these crimes may have happened years ago, but that pain continues. Our hope is that this development today provides you with some relief and some comfort, knowing that the person responsible for your loved one's death is now being held accountable, and he's no longer a threat to anyone else in society. I want you to know, additionally, that the State Police is not done here. We are remaining committed and will continue to support the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, the Suffolk County Police Department, and this task force as we move into the next phase of this process. That's the prosecution. I would also like to say something to everyone watching this with us today. There's been a lot of discussion here today about charges, about the suspect, about what happened, but I would also like everybody to take the time to join with me and keep the families of the victims and the victims themselves in your thoughts and in your prayers. Each one of these victims was a family member and a loved one, and their void and their loss caused great pain, and they did not deserve this. Nobody is deserving of this. We hope this development today will bring some comfort to them as they move forward. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
The court said that the investigation had to be cut short at one point because of, I think, you were fearing the defendant being flee, but more importantly, the safety of people in the community. Can you just explain that more here?
You know, sure. Before I do that, I'm standing back there. I realized I didn't thank my own team. So I want to thank my chief investigator, Rich Zacharis, who is I am so lucky to have. I want to thank Nick Santamartino, ADA Nick Santamartino, ADA Michelle Haddad, ADA Andrew Lee. I also want to thank my chief assistant, Alan Bodie, and I want to thank all of the incredible analysts that we have working for us at the Suffolk County DA's office. So having said that, I will now answer your question. You know, I think that there was a tension in the task force, and it was a good tension because, you know, there's a tension between getting the evidence necessary to charge somebody, but also keeping the public safe. And that's the tension that we always deal with. So as we were working forward, and you know, we had Suffolk County PD, we had the FBI surveilling the defendant. Obviously, that can't be all the time, but we were reasonably assured with that. But this individual was a person that continued to patronize sex workers at all hours of the night. He continued to use fictitious email addresses, fictitious identities, burner phones. And so as we worked through the case, and we got closer and closer, all of a sudden, and we built the evidence, suddenly the balance tips in favor of public safety. So, you know, I think we all wanted as a task force to continue it, but I think collectively we felt that it was time to strike that balance and to take him off the street. So that's what we did.
Yeah, you see that you have some of the family members gathered here today. Could you introduce some of them, and if they wanted to say anything about the news?
I don't believe they. Does anybody want to say anything? No, they're here. They're. I can tell you they're the Waterman, Bartholomew, and Brainerd Barnes family members, but they're here. They're here first and foremost to support their loved ones, and we're happy and grateful to have them here.
Are you looking at any other people? Do you believe that there are multiple people responsible for the remains for the murders?
This portion had to deal with the deaths of these 4 young women, and that's what we focused on. That was what the grand jury investigation was focused on. I talked about the commonalities. And the commonalities, all of those commonalities that we talked to were unique to these 4 separate cases. So that's what we're working on. I think the other members of the task force said, you know, we're going to continue, and continue to work and investigate and try to get a small measure of closure for all the victims' families. But for right now, this defendant, it's this defendant with these 4 victims. I'm here to talk about what we did with regard to these 4 victims, and as I open my address by talking about the need to maintain investigative secrecy. So we are going to maintain that investigative secrecy, and when I talk about other individuals and other cases, it will be after they have handcuffs on.
You mentioned that there was a New York State officer made the link with Herman. He looked at data, and that's when Herman came up shortly after the task force. Can you explain that? Can you talk a little more about that?
So, I mean, we talked about some of the evidence that was there. Obviously the that phone evidence was great evidence. And then there were other commonalities, there were other investigations. But I think one of the good things about having a task force is basically you strip it all down. And you start from scratch, and then you use the DA's office, because the DA's office has to get you the lifeblood of an investigation is information. And the way you get information on a cold case is the district attorney's office issues subpoenas in conjunction with the investigators and executes search warrants, again, in conjunction with the investigators. And then you mine all that data, and then you let that data take you where you need to go. So that's what we did in this case. And 6 weeks in, the break in the case, a significant break in the case, was the avalanche and the fact that this guy, he was described by witnesses as an ogre. He matched the description of the ogre and where he lived.
Was the avalanche the link there? Was that what jumped out?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of things, right? It was his physical size. It was his where he lived, where he worked. The fact that his family members were out of the country at the time of the commission of the 3 murders. The fact that then you start looking into him, and then you start getting burner phones. Well, we had up to 7 burner phones. He's using these fictitious email addresses. So then you follow him and you get an abandonment sample. Then you go back to some of the old evidence. So it's, there are, I mean, March 14th, 2022 was a huge day for the task force, but it's never one piece of evidence. Well, there's like what they'll call lawman searches, and basically what it is you run a certain make and model of a car and certain other, where you live or what you do for a living, and then you get data, and then you mine that data for something that would match with your case. And you do that. You don't do that just, you do that 100 times, until it hits, until you get the right data points.
Did the suspect say anything when he was arrested? Was he surprised? Did he admit to the murders?
So we can't talk about ethically in New York. We can't talk about any statements the defendant made, but he made. We're not turning over any statements.
Was he surprised?
I would say he was, yes.
You mentioned a unique feature
Yeah. So in between the bed and the cab, there's like a little triangular ornament almost, and it's unique in the way it's configured. It's unique to the avalanche. It was unique to the avalanche at that time, and that was something that was pointed out by witnesses. What? Well, the investigation is continuing, and I would never say never. And we're going to continue to look at, again, now this is a watershed event in this case. And so we've now are going out and we're executing more search warrants. We'll get more information, more data, and together we'll look at that and see where it leads.
Can you share what the other victims' families are feeling today?
I'm sorry? So this investigation had to do with these 4 victims. So we've been in touch with the 4 victims through the grand jury process. With regard to victims in general and other victims, who lost people in the vicinity of that area, we speak to our victims all the time, but those are conversations that we keep between ourselves. So, so first off, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, the other 3, one went missing in 2009, I believe the others in 2010. She was in 2007, so it was a little bit more remote in time. We are working through evidence. A lot of that evidence has to do with forensic evidence and analyses that are not completed. But once those analyses are completed, we feel good about the case, and we're going to just continue to let that process go. And again, I think the initial plan was to allow the grand jury investigation to go a little further, but at a certain time, again, the task force felt, you know, we need to, for reasons having nothing to do with the evidence in the case, we need to take it down.
Can you just sum up this defendant? You've seen a lot. Can you just sum up this defendant and what he is?
You know, he's, you know, it's as a prosecutor and as investigators, you know, he is charged with a crime. There are certain elements in which we need to prove that crime. We are going to prove those elements. We're going to work hard. We're going to convict him, and we're going to hold him responsible for what he did. And whether, you know, what I think of him personally, whether I like him, whether I don't like him, it doesn't matter. We are going to hold him responsible for what he did in this case.
When was the grand jury panel, and is it concluded?
The grand jury is, it's secret, and we're going to keep it secret, but we have an investigation, and it is continuing.
There was a belt that was presented publicly by the Suffolk County Police Department a few years ago with initials on it. I think one of the initials appeared to be MH or WH or something along those lines. Obviously, this guy's got an H in his name.
Sure does.
Can you talk about that?
I mean, you know, he has an H in his name. He has, so it's, what was it, HM? Or WH? Yeah, so he's got an H in his name, and other relatives in his family have a W in their name. What that means, I don't know.
Can you talk about alleged why?
I think that when you look at his internet searches, you know, I think that provides a little insight into his state of mind. And again, we don't have to prove motive. We have to prove the elements, and that's what we're going to do. Well, you know, you said women. You know, with regard to the sex workers, what we did was we had him under surveillance. We had other means of monitoring him, and again, it's a process, and that process is you have to balance the ability to find enough evidence to charge him and hold him responsible with the balance of keeping the public safe. And it's not easy, and we decided at a certain point in time that that we needed to take him down because we didn't feel comfortable with it, so that's what we did.
Did the frequency of his searches or the type of his searches increase to cause you alarm?
I don't think it was so much. I don't think it was so much the searches. I think that the conduct of the defendant was very consistent. I think, but the quality of our evidence was increasing by the moment, due to the great work of our task force partners. So at a certain point in time, we're like, okay, you know, we can do this.
Was there a murder weapon, or was this all by physical?
I believe the cause of death is homicidal violence. Obviously, given the length of time and the exposure to a very harsh environment, forensically there was not, you know, not a lot that could be done with the remains, other than come to that conclusion.
He owned 92 guns. There was said at the arraignment that
he has permits for 92 guns. He has a very large safe in which guns are kept. We are continuing to execute search warrants, so I'm sure we'll have that answer shortly.
Quite a large gap between when he last defended and his arrest. Is there any concern that he committed any other crimes in that time period before the task force was set up?
I'm sorry?
Is there any concern that obviously he last was known to commit a crime
I think there's always concerns. I think, you know, I got into office in January 22. We worked with our partners. We had our first meeting February 1st, and we worked. And you know, March 14th was really that watershed day. And when I tell you, you know, I'd like to brag and say that my office was really working hard, which we were, but no other agency was working any less hard than we were. Once we realized what we had and we realized the stakes, all of our partners really worked. I mean, I think if you look at the folks standing here, I don't think that, you know, in the last 48 hours, any of us have gotten more than 3 hours sleep.
Regarding Maureen Bernard Barnes, how much more do you need to actually tie it into that?
We are going to continue our investigation, and when we are prepared, when we have concluded that investigation, we will, you know, we'll bring that to a conclusion, but we will not do it before.
All right, thank you. You have one more?
Between all the search warrants and the subpoena, will you ever, like, do you ever think that you were going to lose them? Like, you know, reading between all the searching around and stuff?
You know, and I don't want to tell you, you know, exact investigative techniques, because they're, you know, again, part of the reasons why they're effective is because people don't necessarily know what that what it is exactly we do. But always a concern, but given the professionalism of our partners, their diligence and their commitment, we felt good about the case, or keeping the case going until we didn't, and then we took it down. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney there wrapping up a news conference here this afternoon, described as a complete and total team effort between the Suffolk County Police, the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department, the FBI, New York State Police, the District Attorney's Office, even the NYPD. We heard now that 16 long months of gathering evidence after identifying Rex Heuermann as the prime suspect in the Gilgo Beach murders led to his arrest and arraignment today. We have team coverage coming up right now at 5 o'clock.
This is CBS 2 News at 5.
We knew the person responsible for these murders would be looking at us.
Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us.
Breaking right now at 5, some stunning new details about the investigation that led to an arrest in the notorious Gilgo Beach murders. After more than 13 years, how police were able to track down the suspect and find him at an office building in Midtown Manhattan.
I'm still shell-shocked, and like I said, I'm just grateful that today is happening.
This is the break in the case that the victims' families have been waiting for more than a decade. Our live team coverage starts right now. Good evening. I'm Christine Johnson.
And I'm Dick Brennan in for Maurice Dubois. We are in this quiet neighborhood live in Massapequa Park that has been turned into a crime scene when police descended this morning. That's because the suspect in this case lives right on this block.
And yes, Dick, this is a huge development in the case that first started in 2007 with the first disappearance of Maureen Brainerd Barnes. And since then, police have released only the identities of 5 of at least 10 bodies that were found in Gilgo Beach.
And today has been a day of fast-moving developments, a lot unfolding in just the past 10 hours. We first brought you this breaking news in our 7 a.m. newscast streaming on CBS News New York when we reported there'd been an arrest. Since then, police have named the suspect. He's Rex Heuermann. He's been arraigned on 6 counts of murder. And just an hour ago, police revealed the details of how they were able to track him down after all these years. We begin our live team coverage with CBS 2's Carolyn Gussoff, who's live in Yaphank with the latest on the investigation. Carolyn.
Dick, good evening. Many wondered if this day would ever come. Since 2010, law enforcement has been trying to solve the notorious Gilgo Beach murders. And today, a Massapequa man stood charged with 3 of them and is considered, according to officials, a prime suspect in a 4th. His name, Rex Heuermann. He is a father, he is a husband, he is an architect, and neighbors say no one suspected anything. He faced a judge. He pled not guilty. he's charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. And while the investigation into the other Gilgo Beach murders continues, officials say they felt it was urgent to get him arrested because they feared that he would hurt more.
I would first and foremost like to offer my deepest condolences to the family members. To the family members of Amber Costello, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman.
More than a decade in the making, an arrest in a serial killer case that's baffled law enforcement and the public. 59-year-old Rex Hewerman, an architect, husband, and father, a hulking man, stood silent as DA Ray Tierney detailed volumes of evidence allegedly linking him to the murders of Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, Amber Costello.
These young women went missing between July of 2007 and September of 2010. They were found in December of 2010 by the Suffolk County Police Department, and then there was nothing.
The break in the case last year, a car registered to Hewerman matched one described by a witness as having picked up victim Amber Costello, a sex worker, before she disappeared. Cell phone tower pings connected him to victims, officials say, while his wife and children were out of town. His DNA allegedly matched hairs found on duct tape used to bind his victims. The final connection, pizza crust tossed into a Manhattan trash can, offered a DNA match officials say excluded more than 99% of the population.
One of the things that we did is we followed him because we wanted to get an abandonment sample of his DNA, which we were able to do.
His court-appointed attorney.
The only thing I can tell you that he did say as he was in tears was, "I didn't do this." We obviously don't have any evidence. This is the beginning of the case. Everybody is presumed innocent in our country.
Massapequa Park neighbors woke up to the unimaginable revelation. The decade-long hunt for a serial killer centered here.
It's a shocker. I mean, it's a real eye-opener.
It's crazy. It's mind-blowing. It's, you know, quiet Massapequa Park.
We spoke frequently, every day, and his kid is a nice kid. He's a special needs kid, and the guy's been quiet, never really bothers anybody. We're kind of shocked. He grew up here with his parents and his brother.
There are 10 victims in the Gilgo Beach murders. He is now linked allegedly to 4 of them. What happens with the other 6? Investigators say that they are continuing, and the grand jury continues to hear evidence in these cases, but they felt it was urgent, they said, to, quote, bring him in because they say he allegedly continued to use burner phones, continued to use sex workers, and his internet searches were sadistic in nature. They thought it was very important that he be arrested now. Reporting live from Yaphank, Long Island, Carolyn Gussoff, CBS 2 News.
You know, Carolyn, you've been covering this case for a long time. You know, there have been a lot of theories in the case, including one that said maybe it was a law enforcement person. What are those theories looking like right now?
Dick, it was always speculated that the person who is the alleged serial killer was perhaps law enforcement because he was so good at evading capture. You know, for more than these murders began in at least 2007. So he seemed to have knowledge of law enforcement techniques. To our knowledge, Hewerman does not have any law enforcement background. He's an architect, but clearly educated, and prosecutors today talked about the fact that he was really searching constantly, obsessively, they said, what they were doing, what their task force was looking into. So very tuned into law enforcement, if not a member of law enforcement himself, clearly very aware of what law enforcement tactics were, and according to prosecutors, very good at not being caught until today.
You know, staying one step ahead of the police until today. Carolyn Gussoff, live in Yaphank. Thank you, Carolyn. We're learning more about the suspect from court documents and some online videos. CBS 2's investigative reporter Tim McNicholas is live in Midtown, where the suspect was arrested last night. Tim, what's going on there now?
Dick, police are shuffling in and out of this office building where sources say Huerman worked. This is at 36th and 5th. And now we're learning just outside this building, it was a pizza box that he tossed in this garbage can that wound up being key to the case. Huerman grew up on Long Island and attended Berner High School, but he worked in Midtown, an architect who ran a company called RH Consultants and Associates.
How you doing? Good to see you. Likewise.
A YouTuber who runs a page called Bonjour Realty interviewed Huerman about his work about a year ago.
What has this job taught you about yourself?
I think it's taught me more about how to understand people.
CBS 2 watched investigators carry at least 4 computers out of the building where Huerman worked. And court records reveal investigators found a key piece of evidence just outside Huerman's office back in January. Detectives say he threw away this pizza box. Then investigators ordered a DNA swab of the leftover crust. Police say they confirmed just this week that the DNA matched a hair found on a burlap-type material that was used to tie up one of the victims, Megan Waterman, more than 20 years ago. People who work on the other floors of this office building say they never saw Huerman, but they're stunned by today's news.
It's a little scary that he was 2 floors above me. We're right on the 9th floor, and no one had any idea, obviously. That's like really scary. And it went on for so long too, which is also horrifying.
I'm just in shock to find out he worked in my building and I could have been in the elevator with him.
Investigators say he also used burner phones to contact sex workers between 2021 and 2023. Here he is at a cell phone store in Midtown in May, where police say he added minutes to one of his burner phones. And just to tell you a bit more about this office building, it's listed on WeWork.com as a co-working office space. So those 2 people you heard from there who work in this building, they did not work for the same company as Huerman. We're working to find out more about what investigators are finding in there and what is on those computers. For now, live in Midtown, Tim McNicholas, CBS 2 News.
All right, Tim, thanks very much. We're also hearing from the families of the victims in Gilgo Beach, the real victims of this horrible crime that went on for years. CBS 2's Jennifer Bisram is live in Riverhead with more. Jennifer.
Hi, Dick. You know, we've been hearing this all day today, but this is something Long Islanders have been waiting for. This is something the victims' families have been waiting for, and finally today, some closure for them. The 3 in the case that he has been charged with is Amber Costello, Melissa Bartholomew, and Megan Waterman. There was also some other victims' families who died around that time, whose remains were found around that time. They were also here today. They were in the courtroom, and they gave emotional statements even before the arraignment began. There is an attorney who represents several of the victims' families, and he says he believes that there are more victims out there. Police will connect him to more cases here on Long Island. Take a listen.
I'm grateful for the hard work that's been done. I'm grateful that today is happening, and I'm hopeful for the future.
A great sigh of relief. Myself, after being on this case for 12 years and investigating this case relentlessly, and as well the victims' families.
And coming up at 6, you'll hear much more from victims' families, but something that we have been hearing all day long from them is closure. They finally have a piece of closure, but they say what justice looks like? Justice looks like after all the cases are closed. Again, some closure for the families here today. We are live in Riverhead. Jennifer Bisram, CBS 2 News.
Indeed, Jennifer, long overdue for these families. Governor Hochul also spoke on the arrest today. She says she hopes it brings long overdue peace.
I know there's a community out there that, as the facts unfold, will be sleeping a lot easier tonight. And a lot of families whose lives have been just turned upside down, always wondering, questioning what happened, and will the perpetrator ever be brought to justice? Hopefully, after further news is unveiled today, that the answer will be yes.
She also congratulated all law enforcement, and they certainly deserve congratulations indeed if this suspect is the person in this case. Now, I have to tell you, this neighborhood that we're in, we call it the cliche, the quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets, beautiful houses, all going down block after block. But today, wow, what an upset to the people here. They've been packed here all day long. I got a chance to speak to them, and to say they were stunned is an understatement.
It is very crazy to just all these years, all of thinking about what went on all those years ago, and of course right here in your own neighborhood. That's
frightening.
It's very frightening.
Kind of like jaw-dropping, because I was young when it first happened, and now that like I have nephews that are young, it's like this is my town. It's crazy.
Definitely relieved, and that it's like finally being spoken about and like heard about. I think it's very like, I would say, nerve-wracking.
Not good to have any, close to home. Knowing these people are just walking around with you every day at the stores, or shopping, or down the block. But they finally got him, and it's glad they got him.
Now I can tell you, one guy spoke to me off camera. He says, I'm supposed to see this stuff on the news, not on my own block. And Christine, that really sums up the feelings of everybody who's been here all day long.
Yeah.
To you.
So many years and so much evidence that police say they have gathered in the past 16 months after identifying the suspect, Dick. It really is a monumental day in New York. Thank you for that. And our coverage of this breaking news is just getting started. Our team of reporters will continue working to bring you every detail on every angle. Right now on CBS 2 and also streaming on CBS News New York. And also, if you're interested in reading the full indictment and seeing any of the archive reports on the Gilgo Beach murders, just go to cbsnewyork.com. Also today, it's a big weather day outside because we're on red alert for storms and flooding. Lonnie Quinn has been tracking everything in our first alert forecast. Lonnie?
Boy, KJ, this morning some folks picked up 4 inches of rain. Other folks did not get a raindrop. And that's somewhat of what's going on outside right now. We really only have one cell really putting down some heavy rain in our area, and it's really a cell that's sandwiched in between Rahway over towards Middlesex. Edison, you're into the game right now. But like I said, that's one of few. But it doesn't take much now since our ground is so saturated. And as we go into the weekend, one day is better than the other, but boy, you get to Sunday, and I think this is going to all be back in place. And we are talking big rain once again. I'm going to talk about all this coming up a little bit later in the show. KJ? All
right, Lonnie, thank you. Also ahead today, hundreds of people line up to get help in Highland Falls after historic flooding. How the community is stepping up to help their neighbors who lost everything. And it is the first day actors are on strike. How it is already having an immediate effect on the entertainment industry. Plus,
I will honor your life by leading a healthy and joyous life.
An emotional funeral to say goodbye to a Newark firefighter who died in the line of duty. How he is being remembered. We mentioned before the break that we are on red alert, looking out for pop-up storms that could turn severe. Let's bring Lonnie Quinn back in with our first alert forecast. Lonnie?
And it's a red alert that we are under as of right now. So let's go through the details. It's for tonight, a little bit of a break on Saturday, then you're right back into it again on Sunday. We're talking about isolated to a bit more widespread. Let's say isolated to scattered thunderstorms, and they could certainly be on the strong side. The biggest threat is going to be flash flooding. Taking a look at what's out there right now. Again, we have a severe cell approaching Pike County right now. This is not a severe cell, but it's putting down some very heavy rain. We have another one just north of that in Morris County, but again, it's now getting towards Woodbridge. It was moving right towards Rahway, and this is the tough thing about these storms. You can't necessarily track them because they're fading a little bit, but also they're fluctuating. It was moving due east. Now watch it move a little bit down to the south, moving right towards Rahway and then dropping down more towards Woodbridge. Edison really under it right now with some heavy rain, thunder, and lightning overhead. And we are the bullseye from the National Weather Service. This is the most likely spot for flash flooding for tonight. And then look at this. You get into Sunday, a very similar picture, that exact same area that was hit so hard on Sunday. When I come back here in about 15 minutes or so, I want to talk about a 2-storm rainfall total. How much rain this area has picked up in just 2 storms. Again, so Saturday, a little bit of a break. Sunday looks to be a wet one again. We have issued a red alert for Sunday as well. Look, there's still a storm chance for Saturday, KG, but not as bad as what I think will happen on Sunday. It's all yours.
Okay, Lonnie, thank you. Still ahead here at 5 today. Actors hit the picket lines today, just one day after going on strike. The impact it is having on Hollywood. Also, world health experts raising the flag about aspartame, the new research about the artificial sweetener used in many of our favorite foods and drinks. Then later at 6 o'clock, how a New Jersey community stepped up to help a 9-year-old whose bike was stolen. The show of support in Passaic. Family, friends, and fellow firefighters gathered today to say goodbye to Newark firefighter Wayne Brooks Jr. He died in the line of duty while battling the cargo ship fire in Newark. CBS 2's Christine Sloan has more now on how he is being remembered.
Hundreds came to honor Newark firefighter Wayne Brooks Jr., who made the ultimate sacrifice. Fellow firefighters saluting as his casket was taken into the Cathedral Basilica, where his heartbroken family, including his 2 daughters, paid tribute to a man they called their superhero.
My dad died doing what he loved to do, and he is so brave.
His daughters describing how Brooks Jr., affectionately known as Bear to so many, was the center of their universe.
I know you will be with me every step of the rest of my life.
You have strengthened me, guided me, and protected me throughout my life.
His wife Michelle having their wedding song played in church.
Where ribbons in the sky.
And a love letter to him read at the service.
You were the captain of our home and would have made a great leader for whatever ladder company you would have led.
The 16-year veteran of the department who graduated first in his class, then posthumously promoted to captain.
The power that was in him to be courageous enough to go in the midst of danger, in the midst of fire, in the midst of smoke, to say, I'm going to do what I called an oath and an honor to do.
Captain Wayne Brooks Jr. answered his last call on July 6, 2023.
Last goodbyes at his flag-draped casket and a promise from his daughters.
I will honor your life by leading a healthy and joyous life while knowing that you are right here with me.
Brooks's fellow firefighters promising to be there for his wife and daughters. In Newark, Christine Sloan, CBS 2 News.
Still ahead here at 5 today, we continue to follow breaking news. The arrest in the notorious Gilgo Beach murders. Coming up, we speak with former Suffolk County Police Commissioner Timothy Sini about what made this case so difficult to crack for so long. And we're also remaining on red alert. We'll check back in with Lonnie on how these storms are timing out, plus what it means for your weekend plans. Also ahead, a warning for all those diet soda drinkers, what world health leaders are saying about your risk for cancer. That's all coming up.
fresh eyes on this case and the resiliency of our investigators allowed us to identify Rex Heuermann.
We continue to follow breaking news right now at 5:30. A man arrested and charged in the Gilgo Beach murders. Tonight, the stunning details on the suspect, and we talk with the former Suffolk County Police Commissioner about the case that went cold for more than a decade. Welcome back. I'm Christine Johnson.
And I'm Dick Brennan. Indeed, Christine, a major break in this case that's been 13 years in the making. Police have arrested Rex Heuermann of Massapequa Park.
And he was arraigned this afternoon, charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and also 3 counts of second-degree murder. CBS 2's Naveen Dhaliwal continues our team coverage. She's live from Yaphank. Naveen.
Yeah, Christine, 13 years in the making, and investigators are confident that they have this guy. It was back in March of 2022 when Rex Heuermann was first identified as a suspect. And that's after investigators looked into a database and saw similarities of the evidence that linked to him. Heuermann is accused of killing 3 of the Gilgo Beach victims found back in 2010. The 4th, well, he remains a suspect in that one. Today, investigators outlined how they got him. They first discovered a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche that was registered to Heuermann back in 2010. And now this was significant because a witness years ago said the killer may have been driving that make and model in one of the killings. From there, the investigation consisted of over 300 subpoenas, search warrants, and other legal processes to obtain evidence. Investigators say updated technology allowed them to test hair samples that were originally degraded in a degraded condition on the victims. And they found they then followed him as well to get abandoned DNA samples. And here is the big one. Investigators looked at cell phone towers and compared locations of the victims and suspects' phones, and there was a parallel on the locations and the times these females were killed. Officials say Heuermann used burner phones to lure his victims and then would get rid of the burner phones, and he had used 7 of them in total.
He got a cell phone and a burner phone, which is prepaid and anonymous. And for each of the murders, he got an individual burner phone, and he used that to communicate with the victims. Then shortly after the death of the victims, he then would get rid of the burner phone.
And right now, the 59-year-old has been charged in 3 of the murders and remains a prime suspect in the 4th murder. Today, investigators say there is a lot more work to be done, and that case, well, we'll see what happens. We're live in Yaphank. Naveen Dhaliwal, CBS 2 News.
All right, Naveen, thanks very much. And as we've been telling you, we've been covering this case for more than a decade, and CBS 2 has been there for every step of the way. Let's take a look at some of our coverage through the years.
Some breaking news to get to on Long Island now. Police are searching for bodies in Gilgo Beach after 2 disturbing discoveries. The search for a missing woman has uncovered 4 bodies hidden in a remote Long Island beach.
And investigators fear this may just be the beginning.
You have the crime scene investigators continuing to work in these terrible conditions after a terrible find of the 4 bodies, and there may be more.
Crime scene investigators worked late into the night and in the rain, digging into what emerged as a sandy graveyard. Body parts found, a yellow marker on each grisly find.
Suffolk's new police commissioner bringing transparency, and he hopes new leads in a notorious crime spree that stumped police for a dozen years.
Of course, we've all been covering this case through the years. I've been on it many times, and I have to tell you what's truly amazing about this arrest is if you look at the statistics, serial killers often do not get caught. We've heard through the reporting tonight that they're generally better educated, but they're 1 or 2 steps ahead of the police, and their crimes go over decades, which means that some of the materials we have now, that police and law enforcement have now, were not available back then. Only now they're taking the steps that are really the keys to take back cases like this. And indeed, they were using a few different things. You saw they used a pizza box that perhaps will link this suspect to DNA. Key changes that have happened only in the last few years. Christine, it's an extraordinary police work that we've seen, and let's hope they have gotten the right guy.
So true, Dick. And in addition to the great police work and the cooperation between all of the agencies, just also thinking, as many have said today, about those families, the victims' families that are now hearing this news today, and how they kept those victims, their loved ones' names in the news, contacting police, contacting journalists to make sure that they were not forgotten.
Indeed, it's true, Christine. The worst part of many of these cases is the not knowing part. I've spoken to many family members who are affected like this, and they say the heartbreak, the agony. And then, of course, though, when the arrest is made, as it has been, at least we think in this case, the arrest has been made. We're not sure if this is the suspect. Once the arrest is made, they hope that the justice system works and follows through. But all the way, they're still feeling that pain that they felt so many years ago in the beginning.
Absolutely, Dick. All right, thank you for that perspective. We'll be checking back in with you in just a little bit. In the meantime, let's hear now from a person who used to work on the Gilgo Beach case. Joining us now from Suffolk County is the former police commissioner and district attorney, Timothy Sini. Timothy, thanks for making the time for us today. He's joining us now by phone. You know, earlier we heard DA Tierney say that investigators ID'd the suspect, Huerman, as a suspect actually in March of last year. Can you tell us whether or not if he was a suspect during your time in office as well?
I don't go into any details about investigation that has not been publicly released in open court today. I will say that investigation has been going on at an intense level for several years, and it's so satisfying to see that this case has now been charged and brought into this next chapter where now the DA's office needs to focus on securing justice in the courtroom. And it'll be interesting to see if the defendant the people to go to trial and test their evidence in court. And I'm confident that at the end of the day, although the defendant is entitled to the presumption of innocence, I'm confident that the people will prevail and prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Given your experience in the case, also just in law enforcement and also at the DA's office, DA Tierney also mentioned today that he would have liked to keep this task force together and continue this investigation, but he alluded to the fact that making the arrest now was important. What do you think was behind that?
Take a dangerous person off the streets as soon as possible. I mean, clearly you have to develop enough evidence to have for the arrest, but you also want to make sure you're going to be able to prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt, and your ability to collect evidence regarding an individual is hampered when it becomes public and when the person is arrested. So it's a balancing act between taking someone off the street as soon as possible, but ensuring that you obtain enough evidence to prove that person's guilt in a court of law.
What do you think made this case so tough to crack?
The victims, unfortunately, went missing and were murdered some time ago. You know, we're talking about 4 victims. The dates of 2007, 2009, 2010. And the other issue is, when I came in and first being with leading the investigation, you know, the investigation was in disarray. You had a police commissioner and a district attorney who were publicly fighting about different theories regarding the case. You had a district attorney and a chief of department actively blocking the FBI from assisting. And you had certain investigative tasks that were not done when they should have been done. And so there was a lot of catch up to do, and that's exactly what we did. And I'm so satisfied to see that this was brought across the finish line.
Rex Huerman has been charged with 3 murders. He's also the prime suspect in a 4th, but there have been other people in this case, other victims in this case included in the Gilgo Beach murders. Do you think that there are more suspects?
Comment on that. I will reiterate what was said in open court, that or as they're commonly referred to, the defendant is the prime suspect in that case, and I suspect that case will be charged in short order. And obviously, the investigation continues with respect to the other victims.
Former Suffolk County Police Commissioner and District Attorney Timothy Sini, thanks for joining us. Our coverage of this breaking news is just getting started, and our team of reporters will continue working to bring you new details on every angle right here on CBS 2 and also streaming on CBS News New York. Coming up here, we will continue to track the red alert in our forecast. Lonnie is back right after this. The cleanup continues in Orange County after historic flooding on Sunday and more rain overnight. Residents in Highland Falls were hit hard and are bracing for more severe weather this weekend. CBS 2's Soch Bedrosian spent the day with residents making a difference in the community.
See if there's grapes left. In Highland Falls. Do we have oranges yet? Yeah. It's all hands on deck, getting essential items from one person to the next. Thank you. You're welcome. Devastating flooding left this community reeling. So much so, the food pantry at Sacred Heart Church is serving more people than they ever have before.
In a course of a month, I may serve maybe about 600 people. So yesterday we served 817 in one day.
Rushing water and collapsed roads can be found in the middle of this small town.
This is catastrophic. I mean, it's there's a lot of tragedy here. A lot of people lost their homes.
Sunday took parts of this community by storm, inundating it with intense floodwaters. It's been about 5 days since this parking lot was nearly underwater, but still there's debris left over, like these trees and sticks, also under these vehicles as well. You can also see the damage, like this sinkhole. You can see this car nearly teetering on the edge of it. All of this swept into this rushing body of water. Residents tell me they're worried
about possible severe weather coming in soon.
Very worried. Last night's storm there were a lot of people. The Facebook posts were going up. I'm feeling anxious. I mean, I was too. I experienced basement flooding.
As dozens of cars pull up for help, other residents across town are clearing out items ruined from flooding, some even finding temporary shelter in their backyards.
There were members of the community jumping in windows to rescue people out of their homes.
No matter the age,
little bites, I put some drinks.
People from across town are finding ways to help.
This is our community. They're all out here helping. It's a beautiful thing.
In Highland Falls, Shosh Bedrosian, CBS 2 News.
Still ahead, actors on the picket line, how this strike is already having an impact and what they're fighting over. TV and movie actors hit the picket line today after their union voted to join the Writers Guild and go on strike. The SAG-AFTRA union represents more than 160,000 members. The union's main sticking points include streaming income and the growing use of artificial intelligence in the entertainment industry.
The eyes of workers are upon us. What is decided in this strike and this negotiation is going to impact everybody. And if we don't take control of this situation from these greedy megalomaniacs, we are all going to be in threat of losing our livelihoods.
Studios say the walkout will lead to financial hardship for thousands of people who depend on the industry. Some CBS News staff are SAG-AFTRA members, but they work under a different contract than the actors and are not affected by the strike. Moving back to our first alert forecast, it's the other top story today. Lonnie Quinn joining us once again with an update on some pop-up storms that could be possible.
Yeah, that could be possible and could be really strong as well. So they may not be, taking place for every single town at the same time, but they're popping up and they've got a punch, gang. Picture outside. You're looking at it right there. Look, it's not raining right now in New York City, but just look. Look at this picture. I mean, that is one soupy atmosphere. I haven't used that description before, but it's a soupy atmosphere. Humidity is way high, 82 degrees as we speak. We have the red alert for the rest of this night. A little break on Saturday. We have a red alert again on Sunday. Here's the deal why. Creeks, streams, they're already swollen. It takes less rain to trigger a flood when your ground is already saturated. Now, keep in mind, we are talking about the potential for some folks seeing 2 to 4 inches of rain. You pick up 4 inches of rain, I'm going to declare a red alert, even if we weren't coming off of picking up, some areas have had 10 inches of rain in spots when you count the storm that we had Saturday night into Sunday, and then again last night into early morning today. West Point has picked up today alone 3.86 inches. The numbers get smaller as you get down to Central Park, about 1/4 of an inch for Central Park. I spoke to some friends in Great Neck today. Not an inch. Didn't get anything out there. West Point with 3.86 inches. All right. You're in that bullseye. All right. This is the area that got hit hardest on Sunday. Well, it was back again early this morning, and a combined total in a place like, Putnam Valley, a 2-storm total is 13 inches of rain. That is the amount of rain you should get for the entire summer, and you got it in 2 storms. Here we are in July. So what we're dealing with, a couple storms are out there as of right now. This storm I've been watching for quite a while hasn't moved a whole lot, but it sure is shrinking, right around Edison. Meanwhile, around Morris, it's percolating from nothing to something. So I do want to show you what we see happening out there. They are scattered. They become more intense in spots, but some folks aren't seeing much of anything. Then you're getting to later Friday night. Now we go into Saturday, a bit of a lull, right? So Saturday's the better half of the weekend. Could be some rain Saturday afternoon, but just watch what comes into the area on Sunday. All right, that's Sunday morning. It's going to get heavier and more intense by, say, Sunday night. It's moving through the area, and consequently, the bullseye, at least from our prediction right now, indicates Flemington, New Jersey. I used to go to flea markets out there. 4.1 inches, again on top of what we have already had, and that's why we have that red alert in place. So I'll just show you the 7-day forecast here. You can look at your weekend. Saturday's the better day. Sure, some rain, but it's not like what I see happening on Sunday. And then Monday, you get a break from the rain. Tuesday, the rain could be back. Wednesday, a break. So I was telling you yesterday, KJ, it looks like right now we're in this pattern of every other day.
Sure.
And we just can't deal with any more in spots out there.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Lonnie.
Okay.
Keep us posted. We have a warning about artificial sweeteners coming up, what you need to know if you use them, and the new details about how they could impact your health. Then at 6 o'clock, how a bike is bringing a New Jersey 9-year-old, the police, and their community together. The World Health Organization has labeled the artificial sweetener aspartame as a possible cause of cancer. But as CBS 2's Tina Kraus reports, another group looked at the same data and says the sugar substitute is safe.
It's 200 times sweeter than sugar, and the world's most widely used artificial sweetener. Aspartame is found in about 6,000 products worldwide, from diet soda to flavored water to yogurt. The World Health Organization's cancer agency now says aspartame is a possible carcinogenic, citing limited evidence for a type of liver cancer. But according to its own hazard classification, confidence in the assessment was low, admitting more research is needed.
And this shouldn't really be taken as a direct statement that indicates that there is a known cancer hazard from consuming aspartame.
Another group of experts from the WHO's Food Additive Committee concluded there's no convincing evidence aspartame is dangerous if people don't consume more than 40 milligrams per just over 2 pounds of their body weight, meaning the average American would need to drink more than a dozen cans of diet soda a day to be at risk.
Results do not indicate that occasional consumption should pose a risk to most consumers.
Do you drink things or eat things with aspartame?
Sure. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Former U.S. Surgeon General Richard Carmona says it's a safe alternative to sugar.
And obesity accelerates just about every disease, whether it's cancer, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and so on. And so there's a reason that we want to reduce sugar consumption.
But experts also advise making healthier choices like drinking water is best for overall health. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
The American Cancer Society is calling for more research on aspartame and advising consumers to watch their intake. Thanks for watching the news at 5 and streaming on CBS 2 and also CBS News New York. I'm Christine Johnson. The news at 6 starts right now. We have some breaking news at 6, a major break in the notorious Gilgo Beach murder.